the wiggles.
I reserve my wiggles for like the third act of the podcast.
You gotta get them out.
I save it for when I need the wiggles the most.
Then you unleash them.
Yeah.
You want to get the wiggles out so that you can be wiggly. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to become one on a higher plane of wiggles.
No, see, you can't counteract the wiggles. You have to like redirect the motion of energy of the wiggles.
But this is momentum, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Getting the wiggles out is building momentum.
You gotta work with the wiggles.
Yeah.
You can't.
I'm a wiggle bender.
You got to know when to wiggle.
I hope all of this goes into the podcast.
We can do that. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the August 2018 edition of the Bizarre Briefing.
Hi.
I'm Bryce Castillo. Joined as always with Brent Hughes.
Hey, that's me.
We got David Rowan here.
That's me.
And Jeff Schusler. We got the whole team back together again.
Just
Hello, everybody.
famous catchphrase.
So this is the Behind the Scenes podcast where we talk every month about all of the behind the scenes stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Modern Rogue, Scam School, Scam stuff. I saved it. I made a bit out of that. I saved that.
Okay.
Night Attack and all sorts of podcasts, all the great stuff that you see online. We are some of the people who make that happen. So everybody, welcome.
Thank you.
It is it's August. We had
No, you're welcome.
oh, thank you. So we had some stuff go on since last month. So let's kind of dive right in.
Have we?
We have.
Have we really though?
So we had a shirt sale.
We had a shirt sale.
We had a shirt sale start and end since last episode, and I think last month when we knew we were going to do one, but we didn't know when. I think would be a good status check on where we were.
Mm-hmm.
But then it came and it also went.
It came and it went.
Brent, do you want to kind of kick us off here with a little bit about it?
Sure. Yeah. So we've been considering doing some kind of shirt sale for quite a while, but we didn't really know what it looked like. Because I know sometimes when we do like the Modern Rogue shirts, we sort of would buy in bulk and then print them off, and we would kind of take in basically like our Patreon pledges would be like pre-orders. And we would say, okay, all of these people want shirts and they want shirts in these sizes. And then we would order some kind of like overstock for those. And, you know, we would just kind of have some shirts left over. So I was like, oh, well, it would probably be good to sell off excess shirts, even though I don't quite know how many excess shirts we have and which designs or whatever. But at some point, it would probably be good to get some of those out so that way people who missed it can get old shirts and kind of create awareness that we have shirts and the quality of the shirts and the designs. Yeah. And also because like up until this point they've been really exclusive. It's been, you know, if you are a Patreon or if you're a patron for $30, then you get whatever shirt happens to be out that month and
that quarter.
That quarter.
Current quarter. Yeah.
And then that's it. If you miss that quarter, then you missed that shirt, right? And nobody else will get it.
And that's tough because there are good those designs are good.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of a shame for them to kind of be so exclusive that they happen once, and if you miss it forever.
Yeah.
You know, there is an interesting like exclusivity to that, but also it feels like a waste a little bit to kind of have it happen and then can never happen again. You know, so between the 3 original public designs, the 4 quarterly designs that came out, plus a variant on all of those, and then a women's variant on all of those.
Right.
We had 21 different shirt SKUs. David, how much of a hell was that dealing with all those SKUs?
Well, so they all have size SKUs underneath that. So you've got basically it's 200 SKUs.
5.
Good God.
There's like a 8 or 9 depending on the shirt
the
size
shirt type,
variants. Because I mean, we XS, small, medium, large, and then XL. That's 5 right there. And then we do 2, 3, 4, and 5 XL as well. So that's 9.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. No, setting them all up in our new on-demand fulfillment place and getting that to work out smoothly because we technically had 0 inventory for a lot of these.
Right.
But we needed to.
I mean, 2/3 of them were brand new.
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the other sort of part that wasn't talked about very much, was that these are going to almost all, or maybe all of them, are going to be fulfilled with a new t-shirt fulfillment company. Is that right?
I think so. I think some of the sizes at the extremes might go to our previous printer, but yeah, that one of the ideas is to just try to use Amplifier, our current fulfillment provider and on-demand apparel printer, more and more, you know, and do things like little one-offs that might show up for a day or two. It might not necessarily be shirts, but might be something else that's printed. And
the flexibility of on-demand printing makes stuff like that happen. And I know, like, when we were doing with the previous printer, you know, he does screen printing in batches. So that's why when we do the Patreon, we have to get the sizing information ahead of time and order a set amount so that we have the certain inventory, and then we ship it out. Where with the new with Amplifier, they will print it and they'll send it out, right? Because they also do fulfillment.
Yeah, they'll do the entire thing from start to finish. Well, other than designing it, but probably do that too. But
probably right. I mean, a lot of these places, they'll put you in touch with designers or something.
Right. So we ordered one just to see the quality, and it came out really, really great. So we said, let's do the green light on all of them. So I think a lot of them will be that on-demand printing process, but a few of them will have done in bulk. I think we sold, something like 600 shirts.
Okay, nice. So in the announcement videos and all the talk about it, the goal was to get a septic system at the property that Brian closed on a few months ago. Apparently, he walked in and had a septic person come out because he knew the septic system needed to be replaced, and then found out that in lieu of a actual septic system, it was just a cesspool. And it was draining out into a pile of rocks, basically.
Nice.
Which is circle of life, probably, not very high activity, but also incredibly gross.
Better than a pile of scissors.
True.
Okay. I mean,
on the spectrum of things.
Well, wait, how big is the property? Why don't you just move the hole like way further away?
Well, because then you still have a hole full of shit, Jeff.
Well, I don't know. Modern Rogue teaches you how to compost human feces. There's a whole episode there, right?
But that's easy. No, you just throw it on the ground and it happens. It's like
I don't think that's
it's off process. I think
you can do more than that.
Do you?
You don't just throw poop on the ground and then trees come.
That's what I do.
You put it in but that's my understanding of what compost piles are. Is it's just fertilizer and like biodegradable stuff. Is that not?
I mean, we're all farmers, so
yes, exactly.
It tracks.
Welcome back to the Farm Podcast.
Yes, Farmcast.
Yeah.
So, in talking about the septic system, Brian said roughly that we were looking to make about $30,000 in terms of profit, so that we could pay off a whole new system.
Yeah, no, we didn't achieve a $30,000 in profit goal. We did do that in gross sales.
Sure.
So,
but I think
nice.
Okay, so that's good. That should have been part of the messaging. Yeah. So I think Brian was saying we probably got about more than halfway there.
Yeah, I mean, enough to
get things started.
Pull the trigger.
Yeah, for sure.
Enough to press the flush lever.
Okay.
Pull the, I'm trying
to fill the
plunger.
Tank.
Yeah.
To fill the tank.
Something about plungers.
Yeah.
And plungers.
It's been like this whole month. Yeah. This whole month, it's just been poop jokes.
Jokes.
It really has.
Yeah.
It has. I know Brian really early on loved the messaging of throw your money in our shitter.
Yeah.
And that became direct messaging copy pretty early on. It starts being kind of like a funny joke and just being like, okay, we got it. You were clever. You had a good idea. I don't know.
Well, the donation, the donation SKU,
where people could just send in money.
Rather, with multiple SKUs, to be technical. Sorry, I'm learning how to drink for the first time. Did really well. Like 10% of the entire weekend came in from just donations.
Really?
Oh, that's cool.
That's great.
Yeah.
I know, Brian, we talked a lot when Brian announced the property that he wanted to do some sort of crowdfunding, and I think that's probably still likely to happen at some point in terms of like a larger direct crowdfunding approach.
That might be more of like when the building, the new building kind of
it'll probably still be further on, but I'm sure he still wants people to be able to give him $20,000 and we name a building after somebody or something like that. Yeah.
Are you interested, Brant?
No, just the idea of naming something after somebody does not sit well with me.
Hughes Hall? Huh?
No. Just on principle, I don't.
Yeah?
I don't.
No? Okay.
Your words, man.
It seems like a liability, and it seems like
We'll put a disclaimer where if your name is like Hitler or the N-word, we can't name it after you. We're very sorry.
And especially if it's both.
Especially if it's
first
both.
name, last name. Yeah, it's not going to happen. I think they might.
My name is Jonathan Hitler N-word.
Yeah, I mean, 2018.
we are in the
man.
South.
Well, that's true. We are. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Damn it! You made it very real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, now you've got a title for the podcast. I think he was going to do something where you like have a brick, and maybe a little less than 20,000, but
Sure. I know. Look, Brian has done. The Patreon is still set up like this, where if you want to give us $100,000, he would rather have a thing on the menu that costs $100,000 than have you wonder what could I do for $100,000.
Right.
Which is fine. Which has worked, right? I mean, we've already had a Titan level patron already, and that probably wouldn't have happened if we didn't have a menu item for it.
Probably not. Although I think there's something to be said that if we had like $1,000, probably could have been like a sustained $1,000 for a little while. But sure.
Yeah.
Probably
I guess so.
not a one lump sum of 10,000 would not have happened had we not offered it.
Yeah. And I think the difference between, $10,000 or $1,000 a month for 10 months is effectively the same. And they're both like equally unreliable.
Sure.
I mean, we've had $50 patrons on the Night Attack Patreon for various amounts of time. And that's great, but also, it's hard to count on that, I mean, that $10,000 one, like, messes up the, any statistics stuff for the Patreon. We had someone, I think we talked about it last month, or maybe we alluded to it, that someone had said that they would pledge at the $10,000 level through Patreon, and then it did not process. And I don't know if do you know if that pledge actually got deleted or if we deleted it?
So I don't know if they were blocked or not, but I know that they were no longer a $10,000 pledge as of this past month.
Got it. I think I told Jason how to delete someone's pledge.
Although I don't think deleting pledges is a thing anymore. I think it's just blocking.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Huh. That's interesting. Because it did used to be that you could delete an individual pledge. Interesting. Speaking of money, we also, within the past month, last episode, we alluded to this, and we were alluding to it partially because the episode was like going to come out the next day, but it hadn't been started, and the product for it was going to come out the next day, and also we didn't have David here to talk about it, but the Full Circle pin, that's the name of the product, right? Was released. How did that go, David?
Yes, well, I guess the pin is probably like a circle game pin, but we call it the Full Circle bundle because we just include it with a couple of other things. Just did really well. I think I've seen Alex do this in the company of magicians who, have seen it all and they love it. They're
Yeah.
laughing the whole time.
And so if you don't know, if you didn't see the episode, it was on the Scam School channel a couple weeks back. It's basically an enamel pin, but in the shape of like the OK hand signal.
Yeah.
And when you have it upside down, it's like the circle game. And if you put it below your crotch, whatever, then it's like punchies, whatever. And so it's a pin where you do a card force, and part of the gag is like you reveal the pin, and so it looks like you caught someone with a circle game, but they look even closer, and their card is actually a part of the design. The number and suit are a part of the design of the pin.
Yeah, it's pretty great by the end of it. He gets you the first time, and then it's a laugh, and then he gets you a second time in there.
Because you think, oh, well,
yeah,
now it's really going to happen.
And then the third time is the time he wants you to look really closely, but by that time you think you've just been, gotten,
Fooled.
and you're just, there's this really funny moment of you're like, no, one more time, like look, and then
the physical present, because how Alex does it is he has it pinned onto his crotch, basically, of his pants,
underneath his like t-shirt,
under his shirt, and so you have to get in really close to see the actual writing on it.
Yeah. And you don't have to. I mean, we in the extra credit episode that comes with it, we talk about other areas that you can kind of get away with doing the effect without. If you're not, you can put it on the
side of your shirt. You can put you can put it other places. And so you said it did well.
Yeah, I mean, we've still got some if people are interested in getting them, but we did.
And they come with. Do they come with an Outlaws?
It comes with an Outlaws deck.
Yeah,
I think it's Crimson
Outlaws
deck.
Crimson, yeah.
And then the pin, then the extra credit episode.
Yeah, so we actually shot a what did it end up being, like 10 or 11 minutes, I believe, of Brian and Alex and you, David, and Danny. Was it?
Yeah, Danny was there.
And Danny Garcia was there, talking a little bit about the routine, different things, different ways that you can vary it up, and a little bit of like conceptual comedy stuff. We shot that. What was that? The week after, or I think it was the week after that we had shot that episode for the pin. It was the week or two after.
Yeah.
And
last time we were at the Rusty Mule.
Yeah, or the previous time.
Before this most recent time.
And it was a nice little video. I think Brian was probably expecting it to be longer, but I think I think the thing missing, or the thing that it would have needed to be a longer video like that, would have been very like direct, like comedy, like dissection, or like talking very specifically about like the act of comedy.
Yeah.
Which I think is maybe too heavy for with that discussion and the people in it, probably. But that is my gut check on that. But
I kind of thought it was maybe a little bit short for an extra credit episode, but
and I think part of that is because like the Scam School episode is the primary instruction point for it, right? Like if you want to learn the routine, you watch that Scam School episode, because I think we even linked to it, or we have a little bit.ly link to it.
If that had been part of the extra credit episode, then it would have been probably more normal length.
Yeah, it would have been pretty substantial, but I think it was good. It came out nice, and that episode I really enjoyed. That was one where we kind of played with the format a little bit. We've done it once or twice before, but like starting the video with like the big reaction, and not having the super tease that we call it, where Brian just kind of tells you what's going to happen. I did a similar thing last night, actually, with the new Monty Hall video, where we just like started from the very beginning, and we didn't have the opening graphic or music or anything, and it was interesting. It was an interesting sort of experiment to just kind of like cut out everything and get right into it,
right?
And I think because people know the Monty Hall, a lot of people know the original Monty Hall problem, and so part of my thinking for it was like, okay, well, the Monty Hall problem is one of those I feel like it might be one of those hotbed terms. Like when we did we did a Rubik's Cube product a year or so ago, and just kind of because it had Rubik's Cube in the title, a lot of people saw it. And we're maybe not too happy that it was like a product video. But so my thinking was this could be something like that. And if we can get into the video as fast as possible, people will stick around longer and will be more likely to share it and kind of get right into it. Because for me, all of the intro stuff, almost all of that intro stuff tends to feel unnecessary.
Probably in 2018, especially maybe a few years ago, everybody was.
Because I think about the other types of videos that I see, and they either like get right into it, or if they have a video stinger up front, it's very short. Like Giant Bombs is only like what 4 or 5 seconds, the video feature thing, and they don't even use that all the time anymore.
Right.
And so like I know I feel like I have a pretty low tolerance for that sort of stuff. Like if I clicked on it, I said I'm gonna watch it, so I want you to get into it, and I don't need you to sell it on me, or sell it to me. And so that's something that I think I'd like to keep experimenting with more pretty actively as you know, Scam School goes on, you know, and you know, we had one or two people. We always have one or two people in the comments. We're like, "What happened to the intros? He doesn't say on the bar and on the street," which he hasn't said in over a year.
Right.
But you know, those.
You also get the spiky hair one still.
Oh, sure, we sure do. Another sort of interesting thing while we're talking about this Monty Hall video is we.
Oh yeah, I love the ad.
So we have a domain ad in it. And we got a lot of good comments about it. And we only got like one comment that was like, oh, this is like a repeat ad. And so even though I went in and re-rendered it without the old test tube logo, but this is probably the second time in as many episodes where we used or recontextualized an old ad to a very good reception and very little like, you're redoing an ad. And I think part of it is that both of these ads are over 2 years old. And so that can be a part of it. Just like there's so much churn, which is maybe not a good indicator if nobody recognizes it. But it was interesting to see that we could reuse it, and it is a good ad. I had a really good time making it back then, and it's funny.
A football goes in the hoop after shooting them.
That's a scam dunk.
It's a scam dunk. Oh my gosh!
I suppose if someone gets upset at it not being a new ad, the silver lining is that they were watching with the hopes of seeing a new ad. So they were watching for the ad, you know. So
right.
I guess that's a positive in some ways.
And we've gotten comments to that effect before, right? Of like, the ads are the funniest part, or whatnot, and that is true. But also, I think if I had a choice, or if I was given a choice between coming up with a new ad concept or taking a proven good ad, I might want to take the proven good funny ad. Only because like Brent, you know Jeff, you know too, that like the ads are
an ordeal,
a lot of heavy lifting. And I mean, we've been doing them for before I was here,
since 2014, maybe end of 2013,
right?
Since I started, pretty much.
And most weeks had a brand new concept ad, and most of them were not Brian giving a very straightforward pitch for domain.com. And so that makes like production of that really difficult. And, you know, between all sorts of travel and stuff, I don't know. I think I haven't heard anything from the people who pay us to do Scam School that it's been an issue. So...
Yeah, a big reason why I originally decided to do a new unique ad every week was that it made it more bulletproof to criticism, and it allowed me to experiment more. So it was the kind of thing where it's like, I put out a Heat Vision and Jack ad, which if you've never seen Heat Vision and Jack, it is completely and totally incomprehensible, and it's just like me screaming for like 30 seconds and then the camera zooms into my mouth and you're like, I don't know what's happening. But it's like, hey, if you didn't like that ad, just wait till next week and there'll be something totally new and different and weird. And also I think at the time I was very like hungry to prove myself and to like just make a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But that was also like the beginning of me overworking myself, and it wasn't until halfway through that year that I realized, oh, this is a lot of work.
Yeah. And like over time, like I came on board, and now we've got Jeff on board, but there's like more shows and more videos being spread around. And I think we'll have more to talk about Scam School probably next episode, hopefully. But it's kind of at a place right now where if we can focus more time on the format of the show and maybe less on trying to figure out a funny skit every week, that's a balance I think us recalibrating towards would be better served for our time.
Also, I don't know, in previous years, has Brian been away as much? It seems like one of the issues that I've had with ads has just been getting him in town, in a place for 20 minutes.
That's a big reason why almost all of my ads were just me.
Yeah.
Right. Like I shot it and was in it and did all of the work. And also at the time I was living in San Marcos. So it was like a long drive to get to Brian. Right. So I was just like, well, I guess I'll do this.
Yeah. And that's it. Like I don't have that level of comfort, with that stuff. And so most of my ads tend to have Brian in it, but I also have a lot more FaceTime with Brian just between being here multiple times a week for the podcast and things. But it's at a place where I am feeling a little drained, and when I've had original concepts for ads lately, I've felt that they've been weak or they've intentionally been easy things to pull off. And I like in a vacuum, if the dichotomy is either that or, running an old ad a lot of people haven't seen or forgot about, but enjoyed, and, there was a lot of time and effort and love put into that, then I think it's better for the show to go with those old ads. As long as they're still still time appropriate for today, as long as the messaging is still on intact, as long as we can have a good footage, we still have footage for it, and we could re-render it without thumbnails or not thumbnails, but watermarks and stuff. I think that's probably fine. Probably, but I don't know. We'll have to see, because it could be a thing where this one was fine, but next week we run something a little more new, and everyone goes, we already saw this one 18 months ago, brah, which I don't think will happen. But it's something where that could snowball into being like, oh, well, you used to give us something new every week, and now you're not. And whatever to that, like kind of whatever, but still, because it's like an ad or it's like a sponsored thing, there's always the potential for that to snowball into something stupid and out of our control.
Sure. Speaking towards the kind of origins being separated from this, as far as like making more shows and stuff, like even Scam School Remix didn't start until like a year after I started doing the ads. So things have changed quite a bit. It's always tough for me because I feel like Scam School Remix has always existed because I've just done it for so long.
And Scam School Remix within like the past 12 months or so has had domain ads, either intermittently. But there was a long stretch last year where they were experimenting with Scam School Remix ads, I believe. But most of those were like tosses to old ads.
Well, we did like one out of every 2 or 3 was a toss to an old ad, and the rest were direct just ad copy.
Oh, interesting.
Because I didn't want it to be like, Scam School Remix is all about compressing everything to the core essentials, and to me, rerunning old ads seemed really counter to that, because it's like, oh, here's a 3-minute Scam School Remix and a 2-minute ad. It kind of is disproportionate.
Sure.
And so I didn't want to rely on that too much, but we did do a bit of that.
Okay. Yeah. So there's at least a little bit of priming for that practice. So that's some ad stuff. I'd love to keep playing around with the Scam School format, in the next month or so. But we'll kind of see what that surface is like, between Jeff and I. Like, us talking about it probably needs to happen at some point.
Oh yeah.
But that's that for now. Speaking of videos, if we're going back to the headquarters, so in the last month, a video sort of walking the property came out on the Monty Rogue channel.
Yeah.
How was that, Brant? Because I think I ended up missing that shoot day for some reason.
Yeah, it was all right. It was hot because it's Texas, and it was. I decided to do a shoulder-mounted camera instead of the glide cam.
Okay, probably a smart idea.
Just because we're walking through the woods and everything, and also I didn't know how long it was going to be, so I decided to go with a slightly more stable one for that kind of situation. It was all right. It was a lot of, if anybody saw our Periscope stream that we did, where everybody was there except for me because it was done on a Friday right after Monty Rogue released, and I had to sleep. It was a lot of the same stuff as that.
Walking the grounds and then looking at sort of the dilapidated house.
Brian just saying, I like this spot. Look at these trees over here. That whole kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all right. I'm glad that there's visual representation of the location now.
Yeah, because I don't think outside of those Twitch streams, which I think a lot of, if it's a YouTube show, so a lot of people won't necessarily end up over there.
Especially since there's zero messaging about that kind of thing on the actual channel.
Right. It's nice to have this and have something a little more intentional.
Yeah.
And
it's also this weird kind of thing of like, I think Brian's very excited. But I also think he's kind of like holding back a bit as far as like surfacing stuff like publicly.
Yeah.
And well, I mean, I can't speak for his storytelling on Night Attack and stuff like that. But as far as like, I really had to push hard for this tour video to say, no, Brian, this is like an essential, necessary video for like telling people that this is a thing and they should be excited about it, and it's going to change, and this is the beginning point for ideally a long story arc.
Yeah. Which has been exactly what he has been talking about, which is, we're going to, everything you're going to see when we put stuff in and install stuff, etc. Was it just that he was not wanting to do the tour video or busy? Because I know it had been on the books for a little while, and various dates that this video was going to be shot kind of came and went.
Yeah, well, I think at the time he was also like in the thick of dealing with the stuff with his brother Jay.
Sure.
And he was in pretty rough condition at the time. So it was, he had a lot on his mind, and it was very hard to focus him on just about anything. Brian calling a watering can a flower pot.
Oh, right. I feel like he did that on the last time when we were out here on the property too.
Probably.
I should just every time now. He sees that. And there's our flower pot.
But also, I think while Brian understands sort of the story at hand, I don't think he really knows how to execute on that and like put it together as like kind of a cohesive thing. And so I think Brian also has like this mentality of, well, that sounds like somebody else's job and they'll figure it out and it'll all work out in the end. And so he's been kind of like, well, if a tour video is so important, you'll just make one. And it's like, okay, well, you got to be there. And
you have to be the person
this is
for it,
an important thing.
I feel like on a larger scale, that's been a habit that I don't love, is like, we happily take care of the production stuff, but you need to be in charge of the content. And I know it's a tough time, but someone we have to be in our lanes for this ship to sail.
Yep. That's how ships work.
That's how they work. They work in lanes. And that's something that
no right on red.
No right on red.
A stoplight in the middle of the Atlantic.
That's pretty funny.
It just,
one captain's up there like, no, you go ahead. And the other's not. No, you go ahead.
The other one on the other side's right of way.
Tailgating with boats.
Yeah,
that's a funny
I like
idea.
tailgating. It's pretty good. Yeah.
Tug gating.
Okay.
Yeah,
sure.
I'm all right with that.
But yeah, that's a thing that I am noticing a lot too, is like wanting to also give up being on the messaging side of this stuff. And he's gotta pick a hat and wear it,
Yeah, I think and maybe this will tie back around once we get to some of the end topics here. Sure. But I think Brian has had a grassroots company that was just him, and then eventually another person, and it is growing larger and larger. And at a certain point, he needs to get like a project manager and somebody who has like a managerial situation where they can make all of the decisions that Brian is uncomfortable making.
Some sort of project manager / personal assistant that just keeps him on schedule.
Yeah,
sure.
On task.
And right now, everybody has a million roles because we are so small and doing so much. And I think it's easy to sometimes forget that Brian is also doing a million roles, and they're all very important. And sometimes it's hard for him to like prioritize what needs to be done and what his involvement in that should be. Because I think he's also got like some allergy to being too involved in certain things that are out of his perceived role. Sure. Because he's seen that go bad in the past. And so he tries to be super hands off with everything.
And that's my thing, is like, I'd want it to be one way or the other, like either hands off, here's autonomy, here you go, and we can debrief when it's done,
or ultra micromanaged,
or just be more decisive.
Yeah.
I think the past 2 weeks on Scam School, this is a very small complaint, but it was enough that it was making me think of this exact thing.
Yeah, let's make it into something.
We Jeff's episode came out last week, and my episode came out yesterday, and like 5 or 10 minutes after publish, I got a message from Brian on Slack.
Title's changing.
Hey, can we like change this title or whatever? Because right now it used to be a year or two ago, everything needed to be a question, and now everything needs to be as short as possible. Like as short as possible, and have like he wants an SEO list basically to be the title. Like important words at the top and incredibly short. And like both of the original titles that we had for these last 2 Scam School videos, I thought were not very bad. They're not really long. They were interesting. They had interesting keywords in them.
What was the original title of the penultimate episode?
Oh man, it was. I don't remember exactly it. They both are very similar to what they are now. But it was this. But in any case, it was like not long after the video published. It was like, okay, hey, can we change the title? And it wasn't, can you change it to this? It was, can you change it to this or this? Or now I'm just going to start brainstorming this out loud, but also not really quite setting up, oh, I think that this is too long. Or I think that like it was in the shape of a discussion, but in the tone of a direction being given. And it was neither of those two pegs. It was this kind of frustrating thing that was like, oh, okay. We did make some small, like, we ended up on like a middle ground between that stuff, because I think the obsession with like, oh, the titles need to be fucking 4 words and like it's always whatever like the latest presentation he's heard from some YouTube guy.
Sure.
Changes it. But
he's also a big fan of subject lines in the same way.
Yeah.
So.
And I get like brevity is good, but also like the format of the English language makes it so that if you have a question, the interesting thing tends to be at the back.
True.
I like how you just took brevity is the soul of wit and shortened it for modern times to brevity good.
Just saying, it's frustrating, the amount of like last minute autonomy, like
did that conversation happen before my episode went up last week? Because I know that it went up to coincide with some of the store stuff, so it was like later on Thursday.
That's right. So like the Scam School episode last week, because it had a promo for the shirt sale, launched not long after the shirt sale started. So I think we had that conversation after it launched.
Okay.
Because I was like, hey, can we launch it? And he was like, sure, I guess. And then the other thing, this is kind of also what bugged me yesterday, is because we were holding that video for this launch, and it wasn't until like after it went out that it was like, hey, let's change the title. Because that there's just something that irks me about like changing the title, especially immediately after releasing it. But then it was like this back and forth between like what happened last week where he was like unavailable when this was all launching. Was he out of town last week?
Last week was Dragon Con, right?
Yeah.
Over the weekend it was. But there was something like on Thursday. He had something going on Thursday where he was in a meeting or something. And it was like, hey, I'm going to have Wi-Fi for about 30 minutes. And it was this back and forth of like, change the Scam School title and change the Modern Rogue title. But then he went ahead and changed the Modern Rogue title, however, because he didn't get a response in 5 seconds. So it was like, well, no one said anything. I don't know. I'm going off.
Speaking of something, I have to go make those T-shirts into a reality.
Okay.
So thank you to everyone who bought one over the past weekend.
Yeah.
I will now go make them for you.
Yeah.
Glad you're here for our Shit Talk Brian segment.
That's why I come.
Yeah.
That's why. And now we'll do the funny thing where I'm here and then suddenly.
Then it's Brian.
Oh.
All right. Welcome back.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Jeff.
I'm highly offended at whatever it is that I just said.
Oh boy.
This is great because we don't like do a musical cue when we go to break. So
No.
Welcome back. We're back. David has left us.
Yeah.
And we want to talk a little bit about some convention stuff that we mentioned last month, the upcoming schedule. We went to Dragon Con this past weekend.
Right.
And it was a really good time. We already had that Night Attack episode that they did out there come out. And it was good. It was a nice episode. The Night Attack stuff at Dragon Con is always
That's a lot of people.
it was a lot of people, though. I think we had more people last year. well, okay, we'll get to that. But the actual
like the Night Attack inauguration.
the recording for the DragonCon shows is always tough for me because there's never enough time. I always need like 5 more minutes to get everything worked out.
Sure.
Usually because, between setting up cameras and setting up the audio recording and figuring out, who was engineering for that room and who was the owner of that room and how do I get in and when can I get stuff in before people start walking in and what can I get done while people are walking in and that all may be the span of like 12 minutes. And so when you listen to it, for example, you will find that the audio is not very good for the first 5 minutes or so. We had to take the audio from my phone, which was doing a stream to Twitch, because that audio ended up being better than any of the other camera audio that was set up.
Sure. And
the headphone jack at the mixer that they use in that room was messed up, and we were getting some real bad things. So the engineer there, one of the engineers there who actually knew what sends were, was able to get me a send bus, and we were able to get the nice rest of the audio. But the recording came out pretty well. The only other frustrating thing was at some point we're doing Don't Get Brodied, and so Brian starts off like standing on the chairs that are on the stage, which is already a little raised. And then eventually, where is he? Eventually, he is standing on the table, just standing directly on the table.
Sure.
And it's not a great look, besides being really where is he? Like there was a lot of footage of him standing on the table, and at one point I told Justin, who was next to me, like, hey, he needs to get off that table for real. Mm-hmm. And it was mostly it's mostly because it's very tough to frame this shot. Yeah. Especially when, I had, we had Paul who helped me out and was manning this wide shot, but he's not like a videographer person much at all. Mm-hmm. And so, this shot that we're looking at right now looks okay because you kind of get Brian's full body and then the 4 other people standing at the table. But there are plenty of shots where Justin is also around and he's up in the front of the stage, but my camera is focused on the person who's giving the story. And so, and so I can't be there to be like, okay, well, you also need to pan to get Justin, or you need to like make the decision to move back to get everything in frame. It was just a weird thing of like him wanting to stand on this table the entire time. I don't know. It happened multiple times, but the episode was good. They Don't Get Brodied and had a lot of people tell some really good stories, including kind of a long one from CJ Boat of Geek.io, talking about, okay, I'm going to summarize it in like 10 seconds because this is as much as he got in. He, I guess, was trying to go to lunch one day and was accosted by Scientologists because he lives in Clearwater, Florida, where they are, I guess, headquartered. And so the next day he gets high, goes to some Scientology retreat thing or whatever, and gives them almost fake information, but he definitely gives them his right phone number. But he told that story for quite a while, so we actually didn't get a payoff on that story because it was, I don't know why he did it. He went and got high and then went and talked to Scientologists for some reason.
Was he high when he told the story?
No, I don't think so.
No.
It's the ultimate peril of Don't Get Brodied.
Right.
It's the fact that you're actually disincentivized for giving a payoff to your story.
Right. There needs to be a bonus of like, there needs to be like a finished story bonus. Like you need to get an extra minute on your time if you got to the end of your story.
Sure.
So, but that was the show. It was good. It was great to see everyone. We flew in on Saturday and then flew out Monday afternoon, and it was good. It was very fast. A lot of people got in like Tuesday or Wednesday for a Friday through Monday show. But it was good. I wish I had a little more time because I ended up seeing a lot of people who I knew from before I moved out here, and so it was a good time. So as far as other conventions coming up, we have Scoopfest coming in the middle of October. That is, I think, the 12th through the 14th. I don't know when exactly our dates are for either of these, but that's in the middle of August or October. And at the end of the October, we have TwitchCon, where the guys, they're not doing a night attack. They're doing a, like, how we survived getting kicked off Justin.tv.
Sort of a panel.
Fuck you guys. Yeah, it's a panel. I don't know what that looks like. I don't really know what new they can add to that conversation other than just restating it. But that'll be happening. And then we'll just be at TwitchCon. So that'll be kind of a cool thing. So we talked about it last month because we had just gotten back from shooting it. But the fight choreography video with Iko Uwais is out now, right, Brant?
Yes. Yeah, that got posted. It really underperformed for a while. And then all of a sudden it started doing really well in Indonesian demographics.
Wonder why.
Yeah. and so now it is not as underperformed.
How was editing this video?
It was interesting because it was like, you know, we had to be more dynamic than usual because we're recording in a boxing ring. And there was definitely like a lot more of both of us being in frame than usual.
Yeah.
And I kind of veered away from that for probably the first half of the episode. And then, or maybe even less than that, but definitely at the start, I wanted us kind of out of there. But then as the episode progressed, I got more and more comfortable just showing us in frame somewhat. But I think it came together pretty well. It was kind of a fun little neat thing.
Oh, there's me.
Yeah.
How was one thing I noticed?
That light flickered a lot, though.
Oh, the one behind you. Yeah,
that really bothered me.
Those gym lights always flicker. One thing I noticed when we were shooting, and we really didn't have time to troubleshoot it very much, was like I think Sam's mic was pretty poppy. Was that how was that?
It was not too bad. It did show up a couple times, and I had to resort to other nearby mics, and just bleed that in. I'm pretty sure part of the reason that Sam's mic was acting up was because he did that front flip at the start,
right?
And
he did it twice. It was after the second one that I noticed it happening.
Well, the first one was more abusive on the mic because he had it clipped to his belt and it fell off early on before he did the flip. So it was just dangling. It was like the actual pack was being suspended, only being held on by the clip on his shirt.
Yeah.
And so when he did the flip, it just threw the mic pack, which to his credit, like he dedicated to that move, but also might have been a little hard on the mic.
Yeah, I think when Brian did the flip the first time, it jostled the batteries enough that it turned the mic off or turned the pack off, which is was not a problem. We didn't lose anything. We caught it immediately. But yeah, it's more. I think that's probably the most stress that those mic packs have taken.
And episodes like that really need like a shotgun mic type solution and a person manning that, because lavs are not good for martial arts videos.
No, we had that we had that with any of the sword stuff where they're wearing guards and things of like trying to position the mics so that they are in the mask with them so that they can be heard, but also not having them like clip out because they're so close to the mouth.
And used to make them do ADR for anything, everything.
It's a weird thing, and I always wish we had someone who could dedicate to being audio or another videographer, so I could do audio or dedicated to audio. A lot of our smaller shoots, we don't we don't really need it because we're able to control a lot of it. But stuff like that, one extra person would have helped out a lot with that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
We also have some shorter episodes that we shot in February. Those have started to come out.
Yeah. Short is a relative descriptor. We shot them with the intent of being short episodes.
Sure. I mean, this candle one is only 11 minutes. That is,
yeah, and it's not a 30-minute episode or something. Definitely, but as we were shooting them, I definitely in my mind had thought, oh, okay, these are going to be substantively different. They're going to be like a bite-sized video clip thing. And I think I expected them to be a little bit more like what Desperate Defense ended up being,
right?
Which was more like
very condensed.
It was very iterative on the previous entries, and they were very similar. And these short episodes are just normal episodes where they
don't have to do very much. Yeah. And they work on the first try.
Yeah, they worked because usually a lot of our episodes are like, learning through failure, and the failure is what ends up adding all of the runtime. And so it's like, if any of our episodes just worked out of the box, then they would be all exactly like this.
Right.
And so they take about as long to put together as a normal episode. And so the idea of doing like multiple of these per week, which is what was originally intended for them, is a little unviable, depending on what else I've got going that week. But it is nice to finally get some of these off the docket because, we did shoot them in like February.
A while ago, yeah.
And so like every now and then we get like one episode that just kind of sticks around for 6 or 8 months or something. That happened with the building a PC episode,
right?
And that was just because I knew it was going to be a real pain.
We've talked a lot about shorter videos and trying to, in the short term, get to more videos a week. And Jason, a lot of it. So we have like this weird language around these ideas, right? The idea of like, well, this is going to be a mini, but this is like an episode. But then, can the episodes be short, or how many mini? Like I think we could just do shorter videos.
Sure.
And not that like the process isn't good and it's not interesting to see these 30-minute videos, whatever. But also I think it would be interesting to lean more on like less beats per concept of a video, right? Like the one in my mind is we did the Macaulay Culkin video on hydrogen balloons, right? And I think that video is great, and I think that all the blocks are great. But one thing we could have done if we wanted that to be a shorter episode is either not have done the science experiment, learning how to make hydrogen out of homemade stuff, or like had tested that and gotten through that really fast. Like, I think part of it is like, these episodes are long partially because we shoot them long, which is something we've said before, right? Is like they take so long, they take X amount of time to shoot, but you tend to keep more stuff in than cutting. Like, you have there ever been any episodes where you've just looked at a segment or an entire duration of it and said, okay, this is all useless, so I'm going to cut it? Or because I feel like your editing style would tend to like portray it so that the fail at the end of it is part of the video.
It depends. I don't think many instances of that are coming to mind except for Lemon Stun Gun. There was definitely big chunks cut out of that because it was a 4-hour epic and nothing worked the entire episode. The way that I tend to approach it is that you know, I'll leave in some kind of failed attempt if I feel like that informs their decision making later on in the episode. So if it helps you, because a lot of times Brian and Jason don't do things the right way. And I think that's why a lot of people like watching the show. And a lot of times seeing them fail beforehand helps you understand how they came to the wrong decision that they made later in the episode. And so I feel like there's a certain like logical continuity that I try to preserve through that. But I mean, it's also like sometimes they'll just be like a big fuck up that they do, and so I'll leave it in there if I feel like there's value in that moment. But if there's not much value in that moment, then you know I'll strip it out. So it's really kind of I take it moment by moment, but generally speaking, I do leave in more than not by the numbers. I don't leave in more than I cut out, but as far as you know, like segments go, I definitely try to preserve most of what happened rather than slim it down to the bare essentials.
Because I know with Scam School, we've done it in the past where I can't think of the exact episode, but I know that there have been times where like someone's like either a third block segment where we have one of the regular sort of audience people who are on the show performing the trick. Either they don't do it very well, or maybe they mess up, or it just doesn't look good. I know that there have to have been at least one or two episodes where we've just cut those out completely, just for the sake of like it doesn't look very good. It's not giving anyone any benefit at this point. And so I think Scam School is maybe a little more receptive of that sort of editing, because it's meant to be a little more instructive, and having stuff like that either doesn't look very good or doesn't portray the information very well, can be confusing and can work against the idea of trying to teach people.
And also Scam School is so much more structured, right? Scam School has very distinct and defined parts, and Modern Rogue very rarely is structured. The only ones that are like very defined and structured are like the article videos, which we still have like 3 of them, and I'm trying to space them out as far apart from each other as I can, because I feel like that will oversaturate almost immediately, because I don't think they're as good of episodes as literally anything else we do.
Right. Yeah, I mean, on the broader topic at hand, like the thing that comes up a lot is like, I want to do the thing that will make it easier for Brant to edit, and that kind of informs a lot of like immediate decisions, but I don't know that reaches like the conceptual phase yet of planning episodes. And I think that's where the heavy work needs to be done, not just like, do we keep fucking around with this thing for 10 minutes or do we scrap it? Because I think that 10 minutes is maybe not making that decision. That 10 minutes is a non-zero decision, but having that more in the conceptual and pre-planning phase would be really important.
Yeah. Because there are definitely like types of episodes that just go by really quickly. So like the what was it? The body displacement illusion.
Oh, sure.
That
with the fake hand.
Yeah, fake hand. That episode went by incredibly fast.
Yeah, that's right.
It was just, and it helps that it worked. So there wasn't a lot of like failed attempts or whatever, but that was just like, that was right around Christmas. I remember that being just an incredibly clean edit, and
came out 13 minutes, 3/4.
Yeah. And that was also like a relatively easy edit with research, right? I put in research to look up like scientific journals about people doing this kind of thing. And you compare that to something like we just recently did a sword cutting episode.
Right.
Which hasn't been published yet, but we did shoot it recently. And while I think that's cool, I know it's going to be a long edit. I just know it is.
In terms of research or just editing it down? Because
far less in terms of research. So generally episodes take a long time because of one of two factors, either research or parsing. So parsing is just taking it down and distilling it into the valuable moments and determining what's worth showing and what's not. And some episodes are really heavy in research. Some episodes are really heavy in parsing. Every now and then you get something that's heavy in both, and that's a whole thing. But there's just going to be a lot of, that sword cutting episode took a while, and there's going to be a lot of like figuring out what moments are worth teaching and what moments aren't. And, there's a lot of mics, so I have to do extra cleanup. And then there's a lot of, it's sometimes I can just see it and I just know that that's going to take a while, and it's also going to be a very long episode. That's going to be like a 30-minute episode. And I'm trying to remember my point.
between the balance of parsing and researching.
Yeah.
And so for the sword cutting episode, that will probably be mostly parsing because it was a longer shoot.
Yeah, and it's also like choosing that kind of episode. That it's going to be a big deal. Whereas there are some episodes that just we do it and it just works, and it's a really clean shoot. It's a really clean edit. And sometimes with like the article videos, those are really easy to shoot because it's Brian and Jason just riffing on an article.
Right.
But also there's like, it actually isn't much easier for me to edit because one, I have a ton of motion graphics work on that.
That's right.
And that's to make the episode interesting, because otherwise I feel like it's really bland.
Right.
And on top of that, because it's not as like exciting to me as something like the body displacement illusion, I'm less motivated. I have like less like internal motivation pushing me to get the edit done quicker.
Yeah. So
it actually, it's a lot harder to build up the momentum of editing to get it done.
Yeah. I wonder, what those episodes will sort of look like as they kind of get further and further away from when we shot them, and further and further away from when those articles were originally published. I don't think we ever leaned too heavily on like, this is, the new article on the Modern Rogue. So
Right.
I don't think that there's like an inconsistency there, but I just wonder what, I don't know. I don't know if we end up doing more of those, because we shot a lot of them very fast, but you're right. It's like, I don't think that they're very like on their own without the graphics work that you do does a lot of the heavy lifting on being visually interesting. But otherwise, just these two guys talking about this article, which itself is retelling these other older stories. And it's not like, oh, we're here at the site of where this happened, or we're here with someone who can speak directly about these stories. It's like, here's this article and we're reading it and like adding their own information, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I think the article videos in particular are really good as far as just reminding people that we have the whole article division of things, because if you just watched our YouTube channel and that's it, you didn't like follow us on Twitter or go to the website or anything like that, depending on how long it's been since we did an article video, you might not know that we even do that, because it's not like we mention it very often on the show by itself.
Yeah. That's true.
And so I think there is some value in that. And I think, if you are on the website and you go to an article and then there's this video attached to the article where Brian and Jason are talking about the article, then I think there's a lot of value in that as well. But it's a very different thing than an episode of Modern Rogue. And I think, to me, there is less value in it. So I could totally see it being something where it's like, like once per month or something, that is a bonus video. That is like a secondary video. If we had another editor who did extra videos or whatever,
Sure.
then I could see that being thrown into the lineup and not replacing a normal Friday video.
Yeah.
But is just like, here's a fun little extra thing.
Yeah.
Then I could totally see that. But yeah, I mean, that in and of itself was an experiment, just as Desperate Defense was an experiment, just as these short episodes are an experiment. We're constantly trying out new stuff and seeing what sticks. Yeah. And I think that one did not catch fire as much as Brian expected, just like the teaser video we did for the Potato Cannon
right,
episode,
which I think probably cannibalized views in a way that I feel like I expected.
Yeah, I was very reluctant to do it, and then we kind of went quiet on it for a while, and then eventually Brian was like, "Hey, so are you doing this video thing for this one?" I was like, I guess I should, so that way if it doesn't work, I can point to that.
It's worth trying, and I think it's an interesting idea. We've talked about a similar solution for other video ideas, and I look at that one and think, well, it's not. I don't know.
I mean, we do preview videos every single week for Twitter. We don't post them on YouTube, but I take like the most interesting bit of that episode and I cut it out and add a little thing at the end, and I share that with Twitter, so that way it's like, oh, if that tweet goes around somewhere, then somebody can get like just like this good little bite of it.
Mm-hmm. Have you when you put those videos on Twitter, how so I know that when you put videos on Twitter, you can have Twitter host them natively. Mm-hmm. And I have seen that when people post videos on Twitter, or when they post like YouTubes on Twitter, Twitter can actually show them natively, not with like the embedded YouTube player. And so when they watch a video, it'll say like, see on youtube.com. Is that something that I don't know if that's like a business for Twitter for business sort of feature or what, but like I think if there was a chance that those videos could be like unlisted on YouTube and someone clicks on it and they end up at the YouTube channel, that would make it easier for them to be at the YouTube channel to subscribe if they clicked on that video.
Maybe. I don't really know how that feature works. In that way.
Yeah. It's just, I remember seeing it yesterday and thinking like, this is not the YouTube embedded player that's usually here. This is like the skin of the Twitter, the Twitter video player. And maybe it's both, right? Maybe it's like they uploaded the video to Twitter and they were able to just put a button that says, see this on YouTube. And that's a separate post.
Maybe. But every time we do post it on the Modern Rogue account, it is just like the title and the link to the episode. So it's like, if they're going to do any more than watch the 30-second clip I put on there or whatever, they're going to have to go to the channel and watch that video where it naturally lives. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, Twitter's video player is bad, just to begin with.
It's not great.
I feel like they definitely went through like a long time of just all videos being completely unwatchable, where you'd get like 10 seconds in and then just get endless buffering. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they worked some of that out a little bit, but it's still not great.
It's not great. Yeah. So we had a question in the chat and I want to address it because I feel like it's a good topic. So Spin Dash was asking about, we had Macaulay Culkin on for a pair of episodes last month. Mm-hmm. And here, I'm going to pull up his initial comment because I think it's important we just stick to his question. Was Mac a good get for the Modern Rogue audience? He has not worked in over a decade, which I'm pretty sure is not even correct. But he goes on to say, well, he doesn't have a YouTube following, which is true, right? Like Bunny Ears does not have a YouTube presence. They are working on their YouTube stuff. But But yes, they are not in the YouTube space. But I think what Spin Dash probably did not understand is like Bunny Ears has its own community elsewhere. And so if Mac makes a video with us, not only can we have him on the show, but his communities can find out about our show by him being on it. And so even though he's not direct on YouTube, it's not some direct thing, it's still two groups of audiences having exposure to each other.
Well, plus just the name itself means something culturally. Like if you had Carrot Top on the Modern Rogue,
sure,
there might not be any real reason for Carrot Top to be on the Modern Rogue. But if I saw a YouTube video that had Jason and Brian and jacked up Carrot Top blowing something up, I'd be like, I want to watch that.
Carrot Top learns how to solve a crime scene with a dead body.
Right.
Like I would be like, that's weird. I'll watch that.
Carrot Top blows his top with hydrogen balloons.
Yeah,
nice. It's
Carrot Top isn't relevant to anybody. Don't.
Spin Dash is trying to say Carrot Top is relevant to 14 and 24-year-olds. No, he's absolutely not.
What I would say is that people know who Macaulay Culkin is.
Sure.
So if whether or not he's had any work is essentially irrelevant.
It's pretty irrelevant.
There's also like a ton of like tangential benefits. I mean, like doing the Iko Uwais thing.
Sure.
There's a lot of benefits with working with those people, working with the people who set that up. There's a lot of benefits to going to a location and doing something. In the case of Macaulay Culkin, there's just like there's just something about like, the more people we get on the show who other people know, the more likely we are to get additional people. There's sort of a gravitational well to that kind of thing.
That is like the core concept of these sort of collaborations or cross promotional sort of videos, right? Like Brian's been on the King of Random multiple times, and in some of those early ones, he was only doing Scam School, which is like not in King of Random's like not his wheelhouse, but it's like that's not what he doesn't teach magic on King of Random. He teaches science stuff, and that's still a sort of thing where you are able to have someone else on your channel, have them provide either their time or their content, and you're able to mix audiences and expose people to various things. And so even if he's not on YouTube, or he's not even like a YouTube generation guy, he still has a site. He still has his own following. We have our own site and our own channel and our own following. And it works out for both of us to promote each other. That is the fundamental tenet of collaborations.
It also just kind of lends an air of credibility on a certain level of just like, he like Macaulay Culkin's probably not going to go to Jeffrey Bogart Gaming YouTube channel or whatever, who has 120 subscribers. So there is just like a little bit of a sort of nebulous benefit that comes out of it that is not directly trackable by analytics.
Sure. So I wanted to point that out because, there was a bit of a discussion in the chat of like, well, who is that for? But like anytime we have a guest on the show, famous or not, like I think that tends to help Modern Rogue significantly.
Also like, who heard of Anthony before we got him on the show? Sure. Outside of people who are like very specifically into HEMA. Yeah, like any of our guests, like we don't need like
we don't need
Bill Gates,
Marquez Brownlee. Oh yeah.
Plus, if the chemistry is good, then it doesn't matter if they're relevant or if they're not, or if they're popular, or if they're not. If it's a better episode because you've got a third person to add to the wackadoo energy, then like it doesn't matter what their credentials are. Otherwise, you just end up only bringing people on that meet your rigid set of like YouTube credentials to be on your show.
And we've even talked before of like I don't know, what if we just had Trevor on for an episode or Anthony on just for some episode that we're doing stuff? And it's like, that's probably a good idea. Like, I think anytime you can get more personalities into the mix, I think that tends to be just better conversation. But also like, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
So that was kind of that.
So look for Jeffrey Bogart YouTube on our channel next month.
Hey guys, what's up? Jeffrey Bogart YouTube here.
Yep.
Be sure to smash that like. Oh my goodness. Okay, a couple more topics. Couple more topics. We can get through these pretty fast. So yesterday, was that yesterday?
That was Tuesday.
2 days ago.
It was 2 days ago. All right, because I was editing yesterday. We had like a very last minute Scam School shoot, and normally we don't. There were a lot of things to happen that there were a lot of things that happened that made us have this shoot that is very uncharacteristic of the type of shoot that we have. Right? Well, the fact that we set it up kind of late is not necessarily uncharacteristic, but it happened on Tuesday night when normally Tuesdays are for Night Attack. It happened. We only did like 2 episodes, and one of those episodes went up Wednesday, which is we don't tend to have that fast turnaround all the time. But we realized that we were out of episodes and we needed more episodes. And Brian is out in California today and tomorrow. Normally we would shoot on a Thursday, but he's out for most of the rest of the week. And so we were going to be out of episodes. And given that we wouldn't be able to fit in a shoot between now and next Wednesday, we needed to get some stuff in the can. It ended up being it ended up being a really good shoot. But it was sort of a thing where one of the episodes, the episode that came out yesterday about the Monty Hall problem, was a relatively short episode. It was like maybe 6 or 7 minutes, right? And it took a lot longer. So there was an incident when Brian was teaching it, where I guess he got through the explanation and he was talking with them and he did it and he said, okay, and we're gonna do great, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna. I think he even went through the whole explanation. I think he got pretty far into the episode, and at the very end went to check the math on this and realized, oh, I definitely did not do that right at all, and we have to start all over. And I think we had to do that a second time. I think he had a second false start, because originally it was what? There are 5 cards, and you got to pick. You picked 1 was his initial, or
you picked 2, and I turn over.
Yeah,
2, 3,
something like it was weird. The thing that we taught on the video was not what he taught when we did it, and we had to stop after like 12 minutes or so of like almost being done with this video and start all over again. So I guess in between at some point the light had shifted, and so you could kind of see the wide shot suddenly be pretty bright when we make that cut pretty early on. But there was that, but that ended up cutting down pretty short because it was a short concept. But then we had this other one.
It's nothing compared to that other one.
That took us about an hour to shoot.
Yep.
And I don't know. I get it. I think I understood it by the end. I think I understood the concept and the principle. But we were shooting it after we were done shooting it, because I was not on the camera. I was listening to audio this time. And after we shot it, I had to go up and be like, I need you to like say something more on video finishing this off. Because I think the thing that they skipped over, and you'll probably see it before, it'll probably come out before the next episode of this podcast comes out. But the issue for me was, at no point did anybody say, if you do this thing, if you flip this certain coin, the math works out so that the next time someone does something,
right,
then they get all the right things that they need. And I think that was the thing that was totally lost on me, was like, why are you doing this? How does this end up being a thing? How does the next person end up getting a thing? Like, I needed the words to be like, the math works. Because normally that's how it is, right? It's like, if you just do these steps, the math works out to be this way. And at least that's acceptable to say. If you know more about math, you'll see that it works. But I didn't even get that. I mean,
it's one of the least intuitive Scam School puzzle solutions that I've ever seen.
It's like good. Super clever, but very complex.
Yeah.
And very specific.
Yeah.
In any case, it's kind of interesting. With these, I don't know. I have no idea when you would ever use this, because even solving it correctly takes so long. So we shot for about an hour, over an hour or so. And 30 to 40 minutes of that, I think, was them going one by one and notating this entire chessboard like 6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
Which a lot of that will definitely get cut down to, but there will still need to be like explanation. It'll be a tough one. I think that's going to be my next episode in 2 weeks. So we'll see. So that was that. Escape School coming to Austin, Texas. Last topic. We're looking for an editor. Well, we've been looking for an editor.
Yeah. So this kind of ties back around to Brian.
Okay.
And his managerial
style. Sure.
Yeah.
So I know we have multiple irons in a fire somewhere about like where we could find another editor, but the thing, and I remember us talking about this one time, and I think it might have been you who said it. It was one of us saying like, we need to do this right, because otherwise you're just going to go on Twitter and grouse that you need an editor. Mm-hmm. And to date, that's pretty much all that's happened.
Yeah. So we have 3 editors right now. Bryce, myself, and Jeff. Mm-hmm. All of us here on the podcast. And we would like to expand that out some. Ideally, this would be somebody who, if they don't live in Austin, would be willing to move to Austin.
Mm-hmm. In the medium term. Like, yeah. I think there's a period where you could be remote for an amount of time as needed.
Brian's said this, but I have qualms.
Okay.
But we can get to it in a second. Yeah. But yeah, there is great value to us in having an extra person on set as we're recording as well as editing. Sure. Like I said earlier, we all have many roles, and while editing might be a primary role, there will be a lot of things additional you would have to do. So yeah, Brian has we've had some people send in applications via email because Brian sent out a tweet once. Right. And yeah, Brian's kind of indicated that like, oh, you could do some remote work for a little while, and then if that works out, then we can get you out here. But the problem with that is that in order for any of their work to be usable, which I would prefer it were if they were putting in time for it, we would basically have to onboard them. And Jacob, who's been on this podcast before, a few times,
he's I think he's technically an intern at Scam Stuff.
Something like that.
He's a college student here.
Yeah. He edited an episode of Scam School Remix recently that went up this past month, a couple episodes ago. And I kind of really dragged my feet on guiding him through that for a long time, because onboarding is this whole process. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, I not only need to take your edit and correct it, and basically edit it myself, just vicariously through you.
Sure.
For the first couple of iterations, but I also need to teach you all of the reasons why each of these edits need to be made, right? Because I need to, if I'm gonna onboard somebody, I need to get them up to steam, and I need them to be like self-sufficient and be able to make further episodes without my guidance. And so for Brian to be like, yeah, just make videos for us. And it's like, okay, I don't want to onboard somebody who's not going to work with us. I don't want to put like all of this time and effort into saying like, hey, this person is good to go. They're ready to work on this, but do that for 10 people simultaneously while we're onboarding all of them, and 9 of those people will not work for us.
Sure. But I also think that there are, I I think in the large scale that's true, but also I can see, because I think what we like with Jacob, he was given footage for a Scam School remix and was told to kind of go and do it, and I think someone could put in the work to at least get started to show that they can understand on their own what the voice of any given show is, and maybe they don't have whatever, but at least there would be ways that we could audition someone through that process, so it's not 10 people that we are trying to get all the way through, right?
Sure. With like no expectation of publishing what they make, because that would need more fine tuning,
Sure.
but
or at least
to get like a broad
something.
scope idea of what they're capable of.
Right.
Absolutely. But Brian also has like this ideology of, I just hire whoever shows up and does the work. And so if you want the job, just do the work for us, and then I'll start paying you.
Which is tough, because things are such now that like you need to be like being, yes. I think it is very good advice to kind of be around the people who need people, because when they say I need people, you can be there to be needed. But also this is a technical position, and we need people who know the software and know like basics of editing, and I haven't looked at any of I've seen that people have made some stuff for us to look at and sent in some stuff, but I have looked at almost none of it. But there's a technical need on this stuff, and I would love it if we could look for someone who is looking for this work specifically, right? Not just like a fan of Brian's who knows how to work iMovie or something. I don't mean to denigrate anybody who wants to get into this, but also like for as much as like onboarding is a process, if part of that process we have to teach them Premiere and After Effects, then like that's incredible. That's even more involved, and that would be that would dip into our production time currently. That would mean us taking further time away when we actually need more time. We need someone to come in who can hit the ground running, and I think we can find plenty of people who have bodies of work that are indicative that they can do the types of things that we're doing or trying to do. But
and I think of all people, the perils of Brian's handshake agreements of like moving out here and being like, so you offered me the job, and he's like, oh.
The short version is I moved here in September of 2014 and did not officially work for the company until January 2015, which is a very long time to rest on your savings, especially when you thought you were told that there would be a job out here. I mean that it becomes that was a very risky thing, and I tell that story not to do that,
right?
Because I lost a lot of money and I'm continuing to lose money, and like that's a red flag. That's not the right way to do this, and I don't want to subject anyone else to that, because that was an incredibly low point in my life for me.
Yeah. And, Brian has gotten lucky with his hiring practices at times, right? Like, I think John was really great for the store in its infancy, and I think David's really great for the store now. And I think, we've worked out pretty well. But I think there's something to be said about a formal hiring practice where there is like tiered interviews and, making sure that people have compatibility with the rest of the company, and making sure that people are competent in their job, and like having a job listing on the website that very clearly outlines what it is we need.
Right.
So that way I'm I will probably not apply for a job if I don't know what is expected of me, right? If it's just a job listing that goes, we need a person.
Well, and that's kind of where the mismatch on this sort of thing is, right? Because if you're a fan of Brian's, if you're like a deeper fan of Brian's and you know of the existence of us three, you probably have an idea of the things that we do. And so you can say, oh, I know those things. I'm good at those things, or I would like to do those things, or I understand that that's what's on the bill here. I am a fully informed consumer. And that doesn't necessarily mean that that person knows how to do the things that we need them to do, or is available, or is even looking for work. But it doesn't make, just because that person is informed doesn't make them a person who is qualified. And the people who are very sure to be qualified have no way to know about any of this stuff. I know one of the things that we were doing is looking for possibly an intern editor, or someone who is like a fresh graduate or near graduate who would be interested in doing some work for either credits or, money, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote up, I made a flyer for Brian because they asked us for a flyer, and I sent it to Brian. He looked at it and said, okay. And then we said, I'm going to make some edits to it. And then didn't, because that was right before some big travel thing. And so that was a couple months ago. And so I wrote out some stuff about like really like the things that we need this person to do and to be able to do and understand and the things that we're looking for and about us as a company. But Brian, as a money man who is in charge and hires people, needs to be the one to finish that off and get it out there, because you know why it's different than in the past is because when you and John came on, those are mostly roadshow managers,
mm-hmm.
basically, or either some version of assistant or a stage manager for the live show. And that's something that I would probably say is a lot of on the job experience and requires you to just be able-bodied enough to do it, right? Like at a certain point, most people could be trained to do it pretty easily and pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But with the video editing stuff, because it's so technical and because it is so, we have a very high quality here, we need someone who at least has a certain understanding or a certain background and foundational skills. And so I would like us to be aiming for that and not just casting our line into the ocean and seeing what comes, right? I want it to be at least a little more targeted so that we know whoever comes in, is both interested in the long term and incentivized to be interested in the long term, and at least has basic skills. Because it's not like we're doing anything crazy. Right. In the broad scope of things, we're not doing anything wild, but you still need to have fundamental understandings of how to put together videos, how to edit down footage. The way that we shoot stuff might as well be documentary style because of how
really
unscripted it is.
Yeah.
And so me, as someone who came to town with those skills and has a degree in all of that stuff, like I was very qualified for it, but I don't know anybody else. I don't know who the applicants are and their skill levels yet. And as far like, there's only one name that I know of people who have sent in stuff, and every other name I haven't seen it, but I'm going to guess that I probably don't know that person or their work. So I don't know. If you want to apply to be an editor, I guess what I would say is please either have a reel set up, a reel ready, or a body of work that we can easily access, and send that to Brian's email, brian@schwood.com.
And maybe also cc modernrogueshow@gmail.com.
because I think we might be looking for 2 editors. This is the other thing, is I know we're looking for more editing power, and I think Brian has offered us both a human body and
a robot body,
not necessarily the same one.
Oh.
And so I don't even know necessarily who gets who.
Right.
Right. Like, we're trying to get the door to 1, but I think we've both been offered 1. So that's also in play.
Yeah. So also some general good practice. Demo reel, aim for it to be under 5.
Sure.
Industry standard is probably like 3 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, but just aim to be under 5, like respect your time. It would be helpful if you clearly demarcated what your roles were in your demo reel. So like if you're the editor, state that you're the editor. If you just acted as grip, if you're camera, if you're lighting or whatever.
Just let it be known.
Yeah. And on some level, if it's like a one-man operation, you're kind of doing everything. So maybe some kind of disclaimer on that.
And though also, like, part of what we're looking for is like storytelling and story, like shaping, basically. And so I think if what you have is longer pieces of that, like giving us that. The one page that I went and looked at had all of the YouTube videos like embedded in one place, and so I could easily click on them and see. So if you have that, a one-page setup like that would also be helpful. Of like, this is my best work. This is longer than I would put in a reel, but is shows off my storytelling capabilities. That's also something to think of.
Yeah. There's also value in saying like, here's my demo, but here's my full body of work. I have made 600 videos, and here's the listing of all of them. We're not going to watch through all 600, but it is helpful to know that, okay, they are capable of producing stuff. They're capable of at least getting volume, if not quality.
Yeah.
There's value in, being passionate and curious, I would say. Like, eager to learn about things. Like Modern Rogue especially has been like, I found that over the course of the show, I become more and more curious, and that curiosity has fed into the show. And I think that's a really valuable trait.
Sure. And then just like any other number of like resume stuff that tips that you can find elsewhere. Keep it at one page. Keep it to your recent and best stuff. Let us know your skills. We work with Adobe, the Adobe suite of software. So letting us know that you have some proficiency in Premiere and After Effects is really helpful.
Any kind of experience in audio is valuable.
That's a little bit more of a wider field because that's more hardware stuff. But if you've used a mixing board, if you've used a field recorder, if you've done field recording, if you've done on-set recording stuff like that, because that tends to be the audio needs that we have, and probably a role you may slot into.
And also just like any kind of production experience, really, stuff like lighting and color grading is also helpful. Mixing and doing whatever.
Yeah. So one more time, that's brian@schwid.com and modernrogueshow@gmail.com.
I'll try to get something written up on the Twitter at least.
Yeah.
About it, to have at least a formalish post there.
Sure.
I don't know.
But I think this is the trouble with this is that we're not like officially in recruitment mode. And so it's not like a united front and a united message the way that like the t-shirt thing was.
Right.
If we spent 48 hours doing the effort that went into the t-shirt campaign last week, it would be I would feel more comfortable with the results that we would be likely to get, and I also feel like we would be more likely to get any results. Not that there aren't plenty of people out there, but it's reaching out to them and finding out who is where and what is available to us. And so I would say if you are hoping, consider pinging us or pinging it very, very occasionally. But you know, it's I don't know. It's a thing that we need to do more than, you know, sooner rather than later, I think.
Yeah. So. Drunk Furball asks if we need a coder.
No.
It probably couldn't hurt to email Brian if you have expertise and say, hey, do you need any help with this kind of thing?
I guess like to be like someone,
but like a full-time job,
we don't.
No,
we don't have anything right now that needs that, and I can't think of anything. I mean, lately that was needed.
I could imagine a few things that could be useful for coding or programming stuff. You know, if we decide to have a Modern Rogue app or something.
Sure.
But
yeah, certainly nothing full time.
I mean, the website, if we went in the direction of the website that I wanted to go in with like my mock-ups before this current iteration, it would need coding work.
Sure.
Which is beyond any of our personal expertise.
Sure. At that level. Gambling Man says, I've done live mixing and multi-camera switching live. The podcast stuff and the the podcast stuff is where we do live multicam switching, like in this show, but things like Night Attack and Cord Killers and those are not shows I'm looking to give up right now, right? They tend to be the better parts of my week, and so I'm not really looking for that. And then the multi-camera stuff that we do with Scam School and Modern Rogue is not live. So that's not necessarily the same skill set we need. It's very helpful if you're doing that, you know, not live or in Premiere, but we're not really looking for someone for the podcast stuff right now.
So there's got to be a system out there for this. If somebody knows about a system like this, let me know. What if you could have? I feel like I've probably mentioned this on the show before. If we had all of the cameras recording, like let's say a Modern Rogue, and then they all have a line out, probably HDMI, filtered into a monitor, and then we get like a multi-cam switching setup, and then somebody could be in the bag and do camera switching, and that gets exported out into into some kind of metadata file or something that's read by Premiere. That once you import the footage, then it can just apply all of that camera switching.
So vMix has a similar thing, and OpenBias New Tech has a solution similar to that. Like I know with vMix they have multi-quarter where you can do live switching with your inputs. And so like here we had the camera set up to input into this computer, but you can also set which of your sources you want to keep a separate individual recording of. So you would get at the end of it your edited recording plus individual streams of footage. I don't know that you would quite have a metadata that you could put into Premiere. I don't think vMixes does that. NewTex might, but in terms of putting that into a NLE format for Premiere after the fact that is already multicammed and switched, I don't know exactly about that. But vMix has a very similar thing.
Just because it's like, even though it's not a long process to do the camera switching stuff, I mean, it takes literally exactly as long as however much footage you have.
Sure.
But if that is expedited live, then that's kind of an interesting time saver.
And like I know a lot of the old Rev 3 Studio stuff, I'm pretty sure was a similar thing, but they were also mostly live to tape. And so that I think is kind of another sort of mismatch there, where like they do it because they can do it live to tape because they're formatted to do it live to tape, or you know, segments that are live to tape, and versus like wanting it to be a non-destructible metadata file for Premiere.
Yeah,
I don't quite know if those all line up, but you could at least get a rough multicam, probably. something like that. There are things like that, at least. So that's that. Hope to hear from some of you guys soon about that. All right, we have run long, as always, so we're gonna wrap up and just do a little bit of off-topic stuff. Jeff, what have you been up to lately? You've been. I know it's the video game apocalypse. All the big long games are coming out.
No, it's not. That'll be in October. I mean, well, right now I'm in the middle of a 3-way RPG fest between Divinity Original Sin 2 on the consoles, Yakuza Kiwami 2, and then Dragon Quest 11.
Okay.
And so I got to finish all 3 of those by Friday when Spider-Man comes out. Yes. But that's not going to happen.
No, that's not going to happen.
Divinity Original Sin 2 is fucking awesome. Everybody should play it.
How's Kiwami 2? I started playing Kiwami 1 and I realized I just finished playing 0 and thought, oh, okay, this is a very good remake of the first game, but the first game definitely had less in it than 0 does.
I think that 2 so far, I've only played 3 or 4 hours of it. So far, I like it. It's got a good bad guy, which I feel is something that a lot of times Yakuza doesn't have. I mean, the guy in the first one, it also starts out in Osaka instead of Kamurocho, so there's a different vibe to everything at the beginning of the game. But one of the things I thought was really fascinating with it was I was watching the cutscenes, and I recently got a lot of flack on my YouTube channel for daring to criticize Shenmue as anything except for the greatest game that's ever been created, because I've never played it before. And I played it, and I was like, oh, this sucks.
It's pretty mediocre, I think.
But I was playing Yakuza Kiwami 2, and I was watching the cutscenes. I was like, these are very cinematic. I wonder how they compare to the PlayStation 2 cutscenes. And they're identical.
Yeah, I know for the first game, they are identical. I wouldn't be surprised if they're exactly shot for shot in this one too.
And it holds up. Like, they've upgraded the graphics, but like all of the shot composition and the dialogue and the music and the way that it's put together seems like it's pretty much exactly the same as the original.
And Kiwami 2 is on their new engine, right? So it's more seamless.
It's more like 6. It's got more of the RPG system of 6, so there's less switching between styles than there were in previous Yakuza games, which I kind of miss. But you still get to hit people with bikes.
Okay.
But
it's always a good thing.
Yeah.
So, Brant, when did your next generation binge begin? Because it was, I don't remember when it was. I guess it was this last shoot. And you were talking with Brian about something. And I was like, did I miss this? He's watching Star. Now I've never seen any Star Trek stuff, so I'm completely out of the loop.
The Next Generation is so good.
Yeah,
I started watching it like a week and a half ago, and I'm like towards the end of season 3 now. And The Next Generation is like,
for just a second, you've never seen any Star Trek?
No, I've only seen two Star Wars movies.
Has nothing to do with each other.
I'm saying.
And you're watching Star Trek: The Next Generation for the first time?
Sort of.
Okay.
So I love
so old.
This is one of my favorite things about like just age. Is like I experienced the same thing with Adam Sessler. So Adam Sessler, I watched on Extended Play before it was X-Play as a kid in like middle school. And I loved the show because there were skits and it was funny. And I was like, oh, I like video games and it's funny. And then I stopped watching the show for a handful of years. And then I came back to Adam Sessler when I found him on Feedback, which was his podcast with Patrick Klepek. And I was like, oh, I've grown up since I last saw Adam. And now I'm seeing that, oh, he's a literature major and he likes talking about the state of the industry and like these more morally complex topics than slapping people with a fish on X-Play or whatever.
The classic fish slap gag.
There is...
Wait, is there?
There is a fish skit. I don't think he slaps anybody, but I think he travels around San Francisco with a fish at one point. Anyway, and so it was really fascinating to me to have this brand new perspective on the same person and to see that there were different attributes about the person that I valued in time. And so with Star Trek, I remember very specifically seeing bits and pieces as a kid at my grandparents' house. And I remember being unfathomably bored about it. I remember it was just like, if you wanted me to leave the room, you could either turn on the news or turn on Star Trek. And so it always just kind of resonated as that in my brain. And then a handful of years ago, I tried to reapproach it, and I was much more interested by it with the concepts and the ideas. I think there were really cool ideas being presented, but I got like sidetracked and ended up not finishing it or something. And I don't even remember how much I saw. I just remember seeing a few episodes and being like, oh, that's really cool. So about a week and a half ago, I really sat down and said, it's on Netflix. I'm going to watch it, and I'm just going to sit through it. And I love it so much.
Whoa, nice.
It is just like now I'm approaching it, and not only do I love the ideas, because it is kind of like, it's like Twilight Zone episodes with an extra act. So Twilight Zone episodes are like 2-act structures where they present the mystery, and then there's the
twist,
the truth of the matter at the end. And Star Trek is, there's the mystery, there's the truth, and then there's a resolution to that.
Yeah.
And I love it so much. There's so much like politicking that I really like, and like moral intrigue. And there's just, it's so good.
Yep.
Oh, I just had a very similar thing recently with something I had not seen in a long time, or since I was a kid, and re-experiencing it made me completely like, it felt like I was seeing it for the first time, because I there was plenty of it that I had never grasped before, or just could never like make connections and stuff.
You didn't have the context for it.
Yeah. I wish I could remember what it was, but I'm glad to hear you got that with TNG.
Yeah, and it's like,
well, plus it only gets better from there. The first 2 seasons of TNG take a little time to ramp up. Like 3 onward, it just starts getting into like all the classics, like all the good stuff, and you start opening up the Klingons and all this other stuff.
Just last night, I saw yesterday's Enterprise, which is such a good episode.
Yep.
It's like, it does some things. There are like parallel timelines from like past seasons that come into play. It's so cool.
Yep.
And one of my favorite moments from TNG is that there's an episode in season 1 that's like a couple episodes in. It's actually super early on, and so everybody in the Federation has to deal with the Prime Directive, right? So it's like, you can help out alien species, but don't interfere, don't change their natural course of progression as a species.
Yeah.
And so there's this episode where there's like some civilization that has a plague going or something, and there's another race that has the vaccine. So Picard is like, okay, well, we're gonna be diplomatic with this race, and we're gonna get the vaccine, we're gonna help the people. Well, part of the customs and culture of this race is they customarily kidnap somebody as like a way to like force diplomacy.
Okay.
And
to push through negotiations.
Yeah.
Just to have a reason to push through negotiations.
And they didn't know that, so they captured their security officer. And there's this really incredible moment where Captain Picard steps aside with his counselor, and he says how ironic it is that the only reason we are here is because of the Prime Directive, because they're there to get the vaccine. But the only reason we can't take back our officer by force, the way we know we can absolutely guarantee her safety, is by the Prime Directive. And so there's this really interesting conflict, and them trying to like puzzle their way around these rules and laws and customs to
solve the
it's just like, it's so cool. And it's like, especially these days where I'm so disillusioned by humanity and people and everything, it's so wonderful to see like a representation of humanity beyond the pettiness of our present day. And seeing that, and also like there's a lot of like pretty clear metaphors and analogies of like, oh, this alien species is dealing with this problem that humanity happens to be exactly dealing with right now in present day. And then like having this elevated human species trying to work through their problems in kind of a detached way. But yeah, and also just like this exploration of curiosity, and it warms my heart and it makes me so happy. Data makes me so happy because I'm very privileged to be of a demographic that is well represented in media.
Sure.
I'm a white man in the United States. No shortage of representation. But with my anxiety stuff, there's like I don't have normal human interactions very often. When I very often, well, maybe not very often, but it has definitely happened where I've been found in situations where I go, I know that culturally it is expected of me to feel very much this one way right now, right? Like if you're delivered bad news or something, it's like, okay, I'm supposed to feel sad right now. I don't. Zero shades of that emotion right now. And so it's like, I have to take a step back and analyze other people to see how they're communicating emotion, and to like, I have a detached human experience sometimes when it comes to like emotional response and communication.
Okay.
And
so like where you have to actively make yourself empathize, basically?
Sort of, for like the benefit of other people to be like, I'm not going to show you this emotion right now because I don't feel it, but I might imitate that emotion because it'll make you feel better to see an expected response.
Okay.
And that is very rarely shown and depicted in media.
Sure.
But
rarely depicted well.
Yeah.
You know.
But Data is an android who cannot feel human emotions. And he is very often trying to understand the human condition and, you know, piece together like, why do people react the way they do? And I relate so deeply to it. And I'm so excited to keep going through this. It's so good.
Very cool.
It only gets better. Have you gotten to the one yet? Oh, I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to spoil anything.
Odds are I'll get through it in the next like week or so.
Very cool. I'm trying to think of what I've been up to. I restarted Breath of the Wild a few weeks back. That game is still very, very good. And it's interesting to replay it with all the DLC sort of stuff being out now. There's a bunch of stuff in my quests menu that like won't go away. So, but that's pretty good. Into the Breach is on the Switch now. Just so
very
good.
Very good.
I'm surprised it doesn't have touch controls, but it's very good. I just played Donut County last night. That was fun. Very short. I had a good time with it. And then I finished rewatching The Office. I think I might have mentioned this last episode. I don't know if I had started this by last episode, but I rewatched The Office, and that show really holds up.
Yeah.
You know, not a lot of shows that run for that long with those many long seasons have as few bad seasons as The Office does. The Office has one bad season, and it's the second to last one.
Right.
And even then, it's still fine. But binge watching it, as opposed to like watching it week after week when it first aired, you really like see more of like the documentary element of it, right? Like that there are more calls to it than it feels like there were, just because they were a little few and far between. And for a show that like revolutionized that style of storytelling, of just like having characters directly tell you what they're thinking, not as an aside, but like having a diegetic reason for it, and then eventually delivering on the format itself in the end, is really good, and it still holds up, and it's it's so weird that no other show that has tried to take that format has acknowledged it in the same way. You know, like Modern Family, there's no reason for those interviews to be happening in the middle of the episode. That doesn't make any sense. But it's a really good storytelling device to have your characters say exactly what they're thinking at any given moment.
Right.
And so I think it's pretty cool that it holds up still. So
yeah, I watched through it some like 6 months ago or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really enjoyed my revisiting of that series as well.
Yeah. Well, it's time for us to go. Thank you guys so much for coming. Jeff, do you want to plug anything?
Rage Select.
RageSelect.com, Rage Select on YouTube. Look it up.
Search those 2 words, you'll find it.
Sure. I'm sure David would like to make his hair plugs joke right here. And also
Great.
Got it in. And let everyone know about scamstuff.com and all the great products there. Brant?
Twitter.com/Gadwag. That's GATOWAG. Also Instagram. Then Instagram/Modern Rogue Show.
You're streaming on Twitch at Gadwag?
Twitch at Gadwag.
Nice.
That's most of it.
Awesome. You can find me on Twitter at Brycas, BRYCS. I do a lot of streaming like this show on twitch.tv/Night Attack. This show, by the way, is called The Bizarre Briefing. You can find out more about it at bizarrebriefing.com. That's where you can find old episodes, time codes, and other sorts of good links. Or if you want to watch the video version of the site of this show, youtube.com/scamstuff. That's where we host this. We come out every end of the month, give or take. And with a nice fat episode like this. So we've been running along the past few months, and I think it's partially because we've had more to say. And I'm as a weekly or as a monthly show, I feel okay with it. Feel good with it.
Yeah.
We come out every month. So I hope we see you guys next month. And with that, bye.
Bye.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.